Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
3 UC San Diego student workers are facing felony charges tonight, accused by university officials of conspiracy and vandalism. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and they were arrested yesterday and released from custody this afternoon. The students spoke exclusively to KPBS education reporter MG Perez and say this is the latest in an ongoing conflict between union members and the administration.
William Schneider and Jessica Ng described their time behind bars after being arrested at their homes by UC San Diego police, who transferred Schneider to the downtown county jail.
There's feces and urine and blood on the walls and floors. I slept a few minutes at a time on a very small steel bench. And essentially, I waited.
Ng was transferred to Las Colinas detention facility.
Really infuriating and frustrating and you know, scary as well to be in that situation.
Both are members of the UAW Local 2865. A third union member who did not want to be identified was also arrested with them and charged with felony conspiracy to commit a crime and felony vandalism over $400. The charges stem from protests outside the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and other campus locations and events. Union members are protesting against the university administration, which they say has refused to implement new contract requirements for thousands of graduate and postgraduate employees.
This is, in my opinion, very clearly part of a larger and coordinated crackdown of union activity across UC. UC has been attempting to systematically renege and undermine the new contract they signed with UAW, with the Graduate Student Researchers Union.
What I'm feeling right now is like a really strong sense of pride in my fellow union members for having fought so hard for what we got and continuing to fight for it as the UC is trying its very best to dodge its responsibilities.
This protest happened May 5th during a UCSD alumni event at the Museum of Contemporary Art in La Jolla. Union members interrupted the program just as Chancellor Pradeep Khosla was about to speak. Although police are not involved, UC San Diego's Office of Student Conduct has launched investigations into the actions of 67 student employees. The union claims many of those employees charged were not even at the event. The most serious allegations involve claims of physical assault, threatening the health and safety of a person, and obstruction of university activities. In a written statement, UC San Diego says the students did $12,000 in damage to the Scripps facility, and the university does not tolerate any vandalism or other damage to university property. The 3 arrested employees will be arraigned on charges July 10th. MG Perez, KPBS News.
2 rulings from the Supreme Court today bring an end to a blockbuster session that will have consequences for years to come. Chris Wynn is in Washington with the latest.
The Supreme Court handing down a pair of key decisions Friday, ruling 6-3 to block President Joe Biden's plan to cancel an estimated $430 billion in student loan debt.
This relief was so needed, and I know that many people like me are really worried and concerned about their financial wellness and stability moving forward.
The decision is a huge blow to the administration, which aimed to deliver up to $20,000 of relief to millions of struggling borrowers. But the White House confirms the president will keep trying. In the same 6-3 split, the Supreme Court's conservative majority also ruled in favor of a Christian web designer refusing to create websites to celebrate same-sex weddings out of religious objections. The decision is rooted in freedom of speech protections, but critics say it will allow more businesses to discriminate against LGBTQ people.
This sweeping opinion promises to destabilize the public marketplace, enabling and encouraging all types of businesses, not just those who make websites, to have a First Amendment right to refuse customers because of who they are.
The blockbuster rulings follow a tumultuous term for the Roberts Court, which has been under a harsh spotlight over ethics and transparency amid reports about Justice Clarence Thomas's pattern of non-disclosures on financial reports.
If you lack legitimacy, people aren't going to listen to you, and then the decisions you issue don't really matter.
In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
The Supreme Court's ruling has many current college students looking for other options to afford their education and possibly graduate debt-free. Isabella Newell is from Chula Vista and is a first-generation college graduate. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from UC San Diego earlier this month, and she says that her plan to graduate without student loans included living with her parents and extensive research to find little-known grants that she qualified for. She also went to Southwestern College before transferring in her junior year. It took her almost 6 years to accomplish her goal.
I mean, even in high school, I know that my teachers still were paying off their debt. And so I just think that, you know, it's heartbreaking. It's something that I think everyone should be able to graduate and not have that stress of debt, because it relieves the pressure, but it also gives you a sense of freedom.
Newell strongly encourages first-generation college students to research the many scholarships available to them. One UCSD grant gave her $20,000 to complete her degree. The preliminary hearing on the jail death of Elisa Cerna is expected to conclude on Monday, and that is when the judge will decide if there is enough evidence to try the case against the medical staff charged with manslaughter. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado says this case could set some precedent and impact future legislation.
A decision is looming. Dr. Frederic von Lintig and nurse Danielle Pasqua are expected to learn on Monday whether they will be tried for manslaughter in the death of 24-year-old Elisa Cerna. Cerna's family has been inside the courtroom every day of the hearing.
We're still finding out new things, you know, about the case and what happened to Elisa.
Elisa's mother, Paloma, says it's been heartbreaking and frustrating to hear firsthand accounts of her daughter's death and to see video she says she's never seen of Elisa's last moments inside a cell at Las Colinas detention facility. She says the moment in the courtroom when an attorney thought the video was frozen is telling.
And he thought the video was frozen because the nurse is doing nothing. She's just staring down on Elisa as she was dying.
Her attorney says testimony from Pasqua's supervisor proves she followed protocol.
In order to show criminal negligence, you need to show a disregard for human life or a high degree that your behavior is going to cause great bodily injury or death. And we have the director of nursing testifying today that my client followed protocol. That the way that this particular individual, while it's very sad that Ms. Cerna passed away, that it wasn't the fault of my client.
The case is being watched closely by activists who also attended Thursday night's meeting of CLRB, the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board.
Transparency is very important. Even right now, what's being said in the preliminary hearing.
Paloma was also at the meeting to hear an update on Senate Bill 219, proposed legislation that would make law enforcement release all records after an in-custody death and expand oversight in jails. The meeting follows the deaths of 2 more inmates this week, both at local hospitals.
Last year, when we broke our record, we were at 10 deaths. This year, we're at 8. We're in crisis.
Yusuf Miller of the North County Justice and Equity Coalition was there to support the bill, too.
People are suffering. People are losing their lives unnecessarily.
Miller says this bill will be Elisa's legacy.
AB 268 is named after the Saving Lives in Custody campaign, and that is all inspired by Elisa Cerna.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Workers at a Starbucks in Encinitas went on strike today to protest the company's treatment of unionized stores. Last month, the Starbucks off of Leucadia and I-5 became the first in San Diego County to see its employees unionize. The workers have cited a reduction in hours as their main complaint. They also say the company has failed to bargain in good faith over things like wages and working conditions. The workers say customers have expressed support and some even joined the picket line.
It's a scary thing to put yourself out there and come together and say, you know, we're not going to let management treat us this way, and that's scary. And so to be received so well by our community is validating and refreshing, and it's been really nice.
Starbucks has denied allegations of unfair labor practices, but says it does prefer a direct relationship with its employees. A Starbucks in Hillcrest has become the second in San Diego County to petition to unionize with Starbucks Workers United. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen spoke with employees there about what they want to see changed.
We love our regulars and our community.
Emma Bradshaw has worked for Starbucks for 3 years. She likes her job and her customers, but things started to go sour at the store on University Avenue and Richmond Street about 8 months ago. An electrical fire forced the store to close, and the generators powering the store ever since have been unreliable.
For a few months, it was like we had a joke at the store that Tuesdays, every single Tuesday, we would lose power. I think it was like multiple weeks in a row that we would have to close.
Those closures have meant Bradshaw has lost a lot of work and came close to losing her health insurance. Unionizing with her colleagues, she says, will give them a greater voice.
Well, it's just been kind of a frustrating last year, and I think that's what's mostly pushed me towards moving or joining the union.
Beyond the loss of income, barista Allie Dodge says managers have forced employees to restart the generators when they break down, even when it's raining.
Which is really scary and really dangerous, and I don't get paid enough to do something so dangerous. My job is to make coffee.
Dodge once called the fire department after a breaker box exploded inside. She says her manager threatened consequences because she didn't call corporate first. She took the job at Starbucks because she believed in the company's mission and values.
Working here, I started to realize that management doesn't really have your back, and the mission and values they really don't matter, especially when it comes to partner safety and partner security.
Starbucks recently announced it was closing a different store in Hillcrest, the one at 5th and Robinson, a half-mile away, claiming it was because of incidents involving the homeless community. Dodge and Bradshaw say the homeless who visit their store are kind and respectful and usually just want a cup of water. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Starbucks has declined to recognize any of its unions voluntarily, and that means that the Hillcrest store will likely have to hold an election supervised by the National Labor Relations Board. Record-breaking travel is expected across the country for the 4th of July holiday weekend. The San Diego International Airport anticipated that 300,000 travelers would pass through this week. Lines were nearly out the door there this morning. Some travelers were worried about their flights being canceled or delayed due to the weather conditions across the country.
We got delayed yesterday. That's why we're still here.
Keep an eye on where the planes are coming from and keep ahead of it, and make sure you talk to the people at the airline, because they were able to put us up for the night, and it, worked out all right.
And across the country, airlines are back to typical cancellation and delay rates. A lot of those people will be coming to San Diego. SDSU's Miro Kopik has more on the busy tourist weekend for our local economy in the Friday Business Report.
This year, there are going to be a record number of travelers for 4th of July. Over 50 million people are going to be traveling over 50 miles away from their home. And yes, we're going to have a lot of people that are leaving that may go up to LA and other parts of the state. But really, San Diego, beginning after the school year ends in most locations, is a mecca for tourists. So we're going to have a lot of tourists in San Diego. That's good news. We saw a lot of great economic news in the last week. 2% GDP growth. Retail spending is up because these consumers are out to spend when they're going on vacation. Now, one of the challenges we've seen is traffic at airports. A significant increase in canceled flights since last Saturday. United, JetBlue, and Delta canceled over 7,500 flights, particularly on the northeastern corridor, because of storms, because of the fires in Canada, because of heat waves. Fortunately, getting ready for this weekend, all these major issues have been resolved. Most airlines got back to a traditional schedule effective yesterday, just in time for the heavy travel schedule today.
The heat, that is making a big comeback, and we see these weather alerts when it comes to the excessive heat advisories. That goes until our Monday evening, so this takes us through the weekend and into the start of the week, where you can see in orange here from Big Bear Lake through Pine Valley, we are talking about that heat advisory, but notice where the red is that excessive heat warning, so things are really going to be dangerously hot at times as we head into the next coming days. So most of that heat we're talking about, that's going to be inland. It will be cooler along the coast with some more clouds, with that breeze moving on in off the Pacific. And then we have a pattern change next week, which should drop those temperatures inland a bit as well. So stay cool if you can, and just know that there will be a pattern change here on the way. Temperatures tonight, look at Borrego Springs, does not dip too much. So even overnight, you don't get too much relief at 78. Mount Laguna drops to 64. San Diego down to 62. And Oceanside, not bad, down to 60 degrees. We talked about the heat tomorrow. Hot, hot, hot. That is going to be the pattern as we head into the start of our weekend, and really for the second half of the weekend as well. So where does that make our temperatures go? Borrego Springs 114. Mount Laguna at 79. We go to 75 in Oceanside, and San Diego at 74 degrees. So hopefully heading to the coast to find some more comfortable conditions. And that should start to be the pattern here as we head into the day on Sunday. So Saturday looks to be hot. Sunday could be a little bit more comfortable for some of us. Looking at what we can expect here as we head into the next couple of days, mid 70s for Saturday, 79 on Sunday, upper 70s Monday and Tuesday. And then, as I mentioned, we'll drop a little bit by the middle of next week. 90s on the way Sunday into Monday, and then temperatures will stay into the upper 80s Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we look ahead to the mountains, where temperatures will increase to the upper 70s, then drop to the lower 70s. And a quick look at the desert forecast, where temperatures will continue to be dangerously hot. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
Today marks day 60 of the writers' strike. Actors have started joining those on the picket line to show their support. Yesterday, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin were among the hundreds of people picketing outside of Netflix studios in Hollywood. Writers are fighting for an increase in pay, streaming residuals, and protections against the increasing use of artificial intelligence. The last writers' strike in 2015 lasted 100 days. And a sad day for the film industry. Academy Award-winning actor Alan Arkin has died at his home in Carlsbad. His family announced that the news today. Arkin was perhaps best known for his role in the film Little Miss Sunshine, for which he won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. He received 4 Academy Award nominations during his decades-long career. Most recently, he starred in the Netflix comedy series The Kominsky Method, earning 2 Emmy nominations. Arkin was 89 years old. A budget deal between the governor and the state legislature will expand Medi-Cal reimbursement rates starting next year. Advocates say this will give recipients more options for medical care. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
State funding for Medi-Cal is set to increase by $2.7 billion. It will largely go toward raising reimbursement rates for physicians and hospitals. Groups like the California Medical Association say this is a big deal because Medi-Cal hasn't historically covered actual cost of care.
If you don't have adequate compensation to help run a business or keep a practice open, it's very difficult to see as many Medi-Cal patients as we need to have been seen.
Just over 1 million San Diegans rely on Medi-Cal for health care. The explanation for how the increase will work isn't so straightforward. It will bring provider reimbursement rates to 87.5% of Medicare rates. Right now, that reimbursement rate could be as low as 60% for some procedures. The Medical Association says increases will start in January for primary and maternity care, along with some mental health services, before expanding to specialty care.
Getting the rates for Medi-Cal higher will hopefully attract more physicians, more clinics to see more Medi-Cal patients so they can have better access.
The increase in reimbursements is being funded by the Managed Care Organization tax. It's paid by health plans and has traditionally gone into the state's general fund.
I wholly anticipate that this is going to really
open up access in a huge way.
Tolu Alashe Ajayi is a pediatrician and former president of the San Diego County Medical Society. With the increases, she's also expecting more doctors to start accepting Medi-Cal patients. That should increase access to care and decrease wait times, especially in underserved communities.
Before I started in organized medicine, I thought, you have insurance, you're going to be taken care of. You have insurance, you have to be taken care of. But if your insurance doesn't allow physicians to actually maintain their practice, they want to accept your insurance. So being able to have coverage that actually allows access, that is the key.
The reimbursement increases are expected to run through 2029.
I think it's going to be a win-win, and hopefully this will continue long term.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
As Pride Month comes to a close nationwide today, a battle over books is playing out at a local library. Misty Jones, head librarian of the Rancho Penasquitos branch, says they get pushback every year for their Pride Month display. But this year, Jones says a patron checked out all of the books in opposition. The patron allegedly refuses to return the books unless the library removes them altogether. Well, Jones says while she believes what this person did is wrong, something great has happened in the end.
We have been really inundated with people calling and emailing, wanting to not only replace the books, but to provide funding to purchase more materials.
The library says they have plenty of books to last all month, so they quickly restocked. They are as tough as nails. A group of San Diego women decided to climb Africa's tallest mountain this year. But what I found out is what sets these women apart is their will to fight against stereotypes to realize their goal.
At Sharp Reese Steely in Rancho Bernardo, Julie Borman gets ready to see her next patient. As a mammographer for more than 35 years, she knows most women above a certain age have an uncomfortable familiarity with a mammography machine. But time and time again, she has seen it save lives.
I know I'm doing something important.
And it's the uncertainty of life that inspired her to set off on her own goals, zeroing in on a particularly lofty one.
The bucket list item was ready to be checked off.
The idea came about during COVID when connecting with others was difficult. Hiking was one of the few joys Borman and her friends could share. Together, 11 of them made a pact to climb Africa's highest peak, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And as if that wasn't enough of a challenge,
all of them were over 58 years old. So the range was 58 to 66.
Anita Mahaffey says climbing Mount Kilimanjaro had always been on her bucket list and was astonished to learn her friends shared the same goal.
And every single one of them, once they signed up, they did not back down.
The women called their group the Killy Queens. They joined Kill a Warrior, a Canadian climbing outfitter, and spent months building up their strength and endurance by taking smaller but progressively challenging hikes, including San Diego's Six Peak Challenge. And then in February 2023, the group set out for Tanzania.
Well, like one of the guides said, you should be in Guinness Book of World Records. And I think part of it was because I only have one eye. So climbing Killy is challenging, but with one eye, it was even more challenging because you don't have the depth perception. Everything kind of looks flat. But you know what? They also said, dig deep, dig deep.
And dig deep they did. She says it was 6 days of fun and 3 days of pure hell, with critical support from the porters hired by their outfitter to guide their trek, as well as to carry 40 pounds of gear per person up the mountain. Borman says the climb was partly for friends and patients who fought breast cancer, and some of the porters wore pink ribbons in solidarity.
We did these things for them too.
Still in the game.
The group took a route called the Western Breach, scrambling over ice, steep terrain, and rocks.
It was the most difficult route of Kilimanjaro. It was also the longest, so it gave us more time to acclimatize.
Eventually, they reached the slowly receding Furtwängler Glacier, which is expected to be completely melted by the year 2050. And as the group continued the ascent, the porters kept track of their oxygen levels, testing their cognitive function with small tasks like tying their shoelaces.
We knew we had to go slowly. And in Swahili, there are 3 words, pole, 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 go slowly.
The slower pace is part of the success rate of summiting. Even so, none of them escaped the dreaded altitude sickness.
The mountain decides. You don't decide. The mountain decides whether you're going to go up or not.
And the mountain decided that 3 of the women should not ascend further.
And it wasn't their choice. It was the outfitter that said, if you go up, you're going to die.
8 of the women made it to the top, but all agree it was the journey to get there and the ensuing bond that formed among the entire group that mattered the most. For the first time since their trek 2 months prior, the Killy Queens met again, this time at lower elevation in Scripps Ranch.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Breaking bread together and processing the surreal experience of their hike, with 2 members of their group joining via Zoom.
You are as young as you will ever be right now. Mm-hmm. And the minute you say you're old is when you're old.
But if I had a message in what all of us wanted to convey, it would be that you actually can. There's nothing stopping you at all. It's all in your head.
The point is that everyone has a trek in life.
And for Julie Borman, who has spent her career protecting women against one of life's uncontrollable variables, she says setting goals does not have to be summiting a mountain like the Killy Queens, but simply pushing yourself to meet desired challenges despite age, gender, or ability.
Do it. Go for it. Be strong. Don't wait. Now's the time.
Maya Trabulsi, KPBS News.
And just put one foot in front of the other.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. Supreme Court issues landmark decisions on student loans and LGBTQ rights. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.